I woke up in the ICU with a fractured skull. My wife stood beside a stranger who claimed he saved my life. But 3 weeks earlier, I'd seen her car at a hotel she had no business being at. Now this hero knows way too much about my wife. Coincidence? I stopped believing in those the moment I realized my accident might not have been an accident at all. My name is Daniel Reynolds. I'm 43 years old, and for the past 18 years, I've built one of the most successful medical equipment supply companies in the Southwest. Reynolds Medical Solutions started in my garage and grew into a multi-million-dollar operation with over 60 employees across 3 states. I was proud of what I'd accomplished, proud of the life I'd given my family. My son Mateo, 17 and heading to college next year. My daughter Amelia, 13 and the light of my world. And Candace, my wife of 19 years, the woman I thought I'd grow old with. The night of the accident, I was driving home from a supplier meeting in Austin. It was past 9, and the highway stretched dark and empty ahead of me. I called Candace earlier to say I'd be late, but she barely responded. Just a flat okay before hanging up. I remember gripping the steering wheel tighter, telling myself we'd talk when I got home. We needed to talk. Things had been off for months. The headlights appeared out of nowhere. 1 second the road was clear. The next a black SUV was swerving into my lane. I yanked the wheel hard to the right, but it wasn't enough. The impact sent my truck spinning, metal shrieking against metal. My head slammed against something hard. Then nothing but darkness. When I woke up, the world was white and sterile. Fluorescent lights burned my eyes. My body felt like it had been put through a meat grinder. Every breath sent sharp pains through my ribs. A nurse appeared beside me, her face professionally calm. "Mr. Reynolds, you're in the ICU," she said softly. "You were in a serious accident. You've been unconscious for 2 days. 2 days." The words didn't register at first. I tried to speak, but my throat was raw. "Your wife has been here," the nurse continued. "She just stepped out with a gentleman who helped at the scene. They should be back shortly." A gentleman who helped at the scene. Something about those words made my stomach turn. Before I could process why, the door opened. Candace walked in, and I barely recognized her. She was dressed in a sharp black blazer and heels, her hair perfectly styled. She looked like she was heading to a business meeting, not visiting her husband in intensive care. "Dan," she exclaimed, rushing to my bedside. Her hand grabbed mine, but the touch felt rehearsed. "Thank God you're awake. I've been so worried." Behind her stood a man I'd never seen before. Tall, maybe mid-40s, with the kind of confident posture that screamed authority. He wore an expensive suit and a practiced smile that didn't reach his eyes. "This is Cameron Blake," Candace said, her voice a touch too bright. "He witnessed the accident and stayed with you until the ambulance arrived. He even rode with you to the hospital." Cameron stepped forward, extending his hand before realizing I couldn't shake it. He let drop. "Glad to see you're conscious, Dan. That was a nasty collision. You're lucky to be alive." I stared at him, my foggy brain trying to make sense of it all. Something felt wrong. The way Candace stood just a bit too close to him. The way her eyes darted between us. The way this stranger knew my name like we were old friends. "Thank you," I managed to rasp out, watching Cameron's face carefully. He nodded, but there was something cold in his expression. Something that made every instinct in my battered body scream danger. Cameron didn't stay long. He made some excuse about a business call and left with a squeeze of Candace's shoulder that lasted a second too long. I watched the door close behind him, then turned my attention to my wife. She was fidgeting with her phone, avoiding my eyes. "How long has he been here?" I asked. My voice came out rougher than I intended. Candace looked up, and for just a moment, I saw something flicker across her face. Fear, maybe, or guilt. "He's been incredibly supportive," she said carefully. "He stayed with you in the ambulance, made sure the doctors had all the information they needed. I don't know what I would have done without him." That wasn't what I'd asked, but I let it slide. My head was pounding, and every word felt like dragging stones uphill. "Where are the kids?" "Mateo's at school. Amelia's with my sister." She finally moved closer to the bed, but kept her distance. "I didn't want them to see you like this until you were stable. I want to see them." "Dan," the doctor said, "I want to see my kids, Candace." The words came out sharper this time, and she flinched. She nodded slowly. "I'll bring them this afternoon, but you need a rest. You've been through major trauma." After she left, I lay there staring at the ceiling. Something was eating at me, something beyond the obvious wrongness of Cameron Blake's presence. I reached for my phone on the bedside table, wincing as the movement pulled at my ribs. The screen was shattered but still functional. I scrolled through my recent calls and messages, looking for anything that might explain this gut feeling. Then I saw it. A text message I'd started typing the night of the accident but never sent. It was addressed to Candace. "We need to talk about the man I saw you with at the Riverside Hotel." The Riverside Hotel. The memory hit me like a freight train. 3 weeks ago, I'd driven past it on my way to a late meeting. Candace's silver Mercedes had been parked in the lot. I called her, asked where she was. She'd said she was at her book club at Amanda's house. I'd almost believed her until I saw a man walking out of the hotel entrance, and then Candace following behind him. They didn't touch, but there was something in the way they moved together that set off every alarm bell in my head. That man had been Cameron Blake. I'd been too busy, too distracted with the business to confront her properly. I told myself it was probably nothing, that I was being paranoid. But deep down I knew. I'd always known. The nurse came in to check my vitals, and I forced myself to focus. The man who was here earlier, Cameron Blake. Did he give any statement to the police about the accident? She looked confused. "I'm not sure, Mr. Reynolds. You'd have to ask the officer who took the report. But I didn't know Mr. Blake was very insistent about staying close to your wife. Said she needed support during this difficult time." Of course he did. When Candace returned that afternoon with Mateo and Amelia, I pushed my suspicions aside. Mateo looked pale and shaken, his usual teenage confidence stripped away. Amelia burst into tears the moment she saw me, climbing carefully onto the bed to hug me despite the wires and tubes. "Dad, we thought..." Mateo's voice broke. "They said it was bad." "I'm okay, buddy," I told him, though the words fell hollow. "I'm going to be fine." But as I held my daughter and looked at my son's frightened face, I knew nothing was fine, and it was about to get a whole lot worse. The doctors kept me for another 2 days. Standard protocol for head trauma, they said. I used that time to think, to piece together the fragments of memory that kept surfacing like debris after a shipwreck. The more I remembered, the clearer the picture became. And it wasn't pretty. Candace visited twice a day, always perfectly dressed, always with that practice concern on her face. But she never stayed long. Always had somewhere to be, something urgent that needed her attention. The kids came every evening, and those were the only moments that felt real. Mateo tried to act tough, but I could see the fear in his eyes. Amelia clung to me like I might disappear if she let go. On the 3rd day, I finally convinced the doctors to discharge me. My ribs were wrapped tight, my head still pounded, but I needed out of that sterile prison. I needed to be home, in my own space, where I could think clearly and figure out my next move. Tyler Harrison showed up to drive me home. My best friend since college. Tyler had moved to Phoenix for work 15 years ago, but we'd stayed close. I called him from the hospital, told him I needed someone I could trust. He caught a flight that same night. "You look like hell," Tyler said as he helped me into his rental car. "Feel worse," I muttered, settling gingerly into the passenger seat. He didn't start the engine right away. Just sat there, gripping the steering wheel. "You want to tell me what's really going on, Dan? Because your wife showing up with some random guy at your accident scene doesn't sit right with me." I'd always appreciated Tyler's directness. No sugarcoating, no dancing around uncomfortable truths. "I think Candace is having an affair with him. Cameron Blake. I saw them together at a hotel 3 weeks ago." Tyler's jaw tightened. "You sure?" "No, but my gut is." I told him about the text message I'd started to write, about Cameron's convenient presence at the crash. When I woke up in that ICU and realized my wife's lover might be responsible for putting me there, I knew I had to act. I just don't know how yet. "First thing we do is get proof," Tyler said, starting the car. "You can't go to war on a hunch. We need evidence." The drive home took 40 minutes. When we pulled into my driveway, I noticed Candace's Mercedes wasn't there. The house felt empty when we walked in, though Amelia's backpack sat by the stairs and Mateo's basketball shoes were kicked off near the door. "Kids at school?" Tyler asked. "Should be." I checked my phone. No messages from Candace about where she was. Par for the course lately. Tyler helped me settle on the couch, then disappeared into the kitchen. He came back with water and painkillers. "You need anything else, you tell me. I'm staying at the Hampton Inn, but I'm 5 minutes away." "Thanks, man. I mean it." After he left, I sat in the quiet house and let the reality sink in. My wife was lying to me, possibly conspiring with another man to do God knows what. My business, my assets, my kids, everything I'd built over 2 decades was potentially at risk. The old Dan would have confronted her directly, demanded answers, made a scene. But I wasn't that man anymore. The crash had changed something in me, made me colder, more calculating. If Candace wanted to play games, I'd play. But I'd play to win. Candace came home an hour later, her arms full of shopping bags. She looked surprised to see me on the couch. Dan, I didn't expect you home until this evening. She set the bags down, and I caught a glimpse of expensive clothing through the tissue paper. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck, I said evenly. Where were you? Just running errands. I needed to pick up a few things. She gestured vaguely at the bags. Do you need anything? Are you hungry? I watched her move through the kitchen, all nervous energy and forced brightness. This wasn't the woman I'd married. That Candace had been warm, genuine, present. This person was a stranger wearing my wife's face. We need to talk, I said. Her hand stilled on the refrigerator door. About what? About Cameron Blake. The color drained from her face, but she recovered quickly. What about him? He helped save her life, Dan. How do you really know him, Candace? I kept my voice level, reasonable. And don't feed me that line about him being a good Samaritan. I want the truth. She turned to face me fully, and I saw something flicker in her eyes. Calculation. She was weighing her options, deciding which lie to serve me. He's a business consultant. I met him at a networking event 6 months ago. What kind of consulting? Corporate restructuring, mergers and acquisitions, that sort of thing. She crossed her arms defensively. Why are you interrogating me? Because I saw you with him, Candace, at the Riverside Hotel 3 weeks ago. Her face went pale, then flushed red. You were following me? I was driving past. Your car was there. Then you walked out with him. I leaned forward despite the pain shooting through my ribs. So let's try this again. How do you really know Cameron Blake? It was a business meeting, she said, but her voice had lost its conviction. We were discussing investment opportunities. At a hotel. At night. It was convenient. Dan, you're reading way too much into this. I pulled out my phone, pulled up the unsent text message, and showed her. Then explain this. Why was I about to confront you about him the night of my accident? Candace stared at the screen, and for a moment, I thought she might break. Might finally tell me the truth. Instead, she straightened her shoulders and looked me dead in the eye. I don't know what you wanted to say. You've been paranoid for months, seeing problems where there aren't any. Maybe the accident messed with your head more than the doctors thought. It was a masterful deflection. Turn it around, make me the problem, make me doubt my own perceptions. In the past, it might have worked. Not anymore. Get out, I said quietly. What? I said get out. Go to your sister's. Go to a hotel. I don't care. But I want you out of this house until I figure out what's really going on. You can't kick me out of my own home. Watch me. I stood up, ignoring the pain. You've got 30 minutes to pack a bag. Then I'm calling the police and telling them you're trespassing. Dan, you're being ridiculous. 29 minutes, I said, my voice hard as granite. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Then, without another word, she grabbed her purse and stormed upstairs. I heard drawers slamming, closet doors banging. 15 minutes later, she came down with a suitcase, her face a mask of cold fury. You're going to regret this, she said at the door. Maybe, I replied, but at least I'll regret it with a clear conscience. The door slammed behind her, and I sank back onto the couch, my whole body trembling. It was done. The first move had been made. Now I needed to figure out my next one before she and Cameron made theirs. The kids came home to find me alone on the couch, ice pack pressed against my ribs. Amelia dropped her backpack and ran to me, her face crumpling with concern. Dad, where's Mom? She asked. She's staying with Aunt Linda for a few days, I said, smoothing her hair back. We both need some space to think. Mateo stood in the doorway, his jaw tight. He was 17, old enough to read between the lines. You two fighting. Something like that, buddy. Come sit down. We need to talk. I'd rehearsed this conversation a dozen times in my head, trying to figure out how much to tell them. Too much would destroy their image of their mother. Too little would leave them confused and scared. I settled somewhere in the middle. Your mom and I are having serious problems, I said carefully. I don't know if we're going to work through them. But whatever happens between us, it doesn't change how much we both love you too. Is it because of that Cameron guy? Mateo asked bluntly. My stomach dropped. You know about Cameron? Mom's been talking to him on the phone a lot. Like all the time. She thinks I don't notice, but I do. His face hardened. Is she cheating on you? I looked at my son, seeing the anger and hurt warring in his expression. He deserved the truth, or at least part of it. I think so, yes. But I'm still figuring out exactly what's going on. Amelia started crying softly. I pulled her close, feeling my heart break for the 100th time that week. I hate her, Mateo said, his voice sharp with teenage fury. No, you don't. She's still your mother. Whatever mistake she's made, that doesn't change. I met his eyes. But I need you to be strong right now. For your sister and for me. Can you do that? He nodded stiffly, then grabbed his backpack and headed upstairs. Amelia stayed curled against me until she fell asleep, exhausted from crying. I carried her up to her room, tucked her in, then returned to the living room where Tyler was waiting. That went about as well as could be expected, Tyler said quietly. Yeah. I dropped back onto the couch, suddenly exhausted. What did you find? Tyler opened his laptop. Cameron Blake, 55 years old, originally from Chicago. Runs a consulting firm called Blake Strategic Solutions. Specializes in what he calls marital asset optimization, which means he helps people screw over their spouses in divorce proceedings, sets up shell companies, hides assets, creates paper trails that make everything look legitimate. Tyler scrolled through more information. He's been sued 4 times. All cases settled out of court. Guy's a professional homewrecker. My hands clenched into fists. How long has Candace been working with him? Based on his retainer agreements, he requires a 6-month minimum engagement. So if she hired him around the time you saw them at the hotel, they've been planning this for at least 3 weeks. Probably longer. And the accident? Tyler's expression darkened. I talked to a buddy who works in accident reconstruction. He pulled the police report. The other vehicle left paint transfer on your truck. Black paint, consistent with a late model SUV. Cameron Blake drives a black Range Rover. The room spun. He ran me off the road. Looks that way. Can't prove it yet, but we're working on it. The next morning, I forced myself to go into the office. Reynolds Medical Solutions occupied a modern building on the outskirts of Phoenix, employing 63 people who depended on me to keep the lights on. I'd built this company from nothing, and I'd be damned if Candace and Cameron were going to take it from me. My operations manager, Sarah Chun, took one look at me and frowned. Boss, you should be home recovering. I'm fine. I lied, easing into my desk chair. What's happened while I was out? Nothing major. The Austin contract went through. We got 2 new clients starting next month. She hesitated. Your wife called yesterday. Asked about the company's financial statements. My blood ran cold. What did you tell her? That she'd need to request them through you or our accountant. She didn't seem happy about it. Sarah's expression sharpened. Is everything okay, Dan? I made a decision. Sarah had been with me for 12 years. She was trustworthy, competent, and fiercely loyal to the company. Close the door. She did, then sat across from me, concern etched on her face. Candace and I are separating, I said bluntly. She's been having an affair with a man who specializes in destroying businesses during divorces. I need you to do something for me, and I need you to keep it completely confidential. Anything. Freeze all discretionary spending. No new contracts over $10,000 without my explicit written approval. And I need you to work with our accountant to move our operating funds into a separate account that only I can access. Sarah's eyes widened. You think she'll try to sabotage the business? I think she'll try to take everything I've built. And I'm not going to let that happen. Over the next 3 hours, Sarah and I worked methodically to protect the company. We changed passwords, updated signature authorities, and created a paper trail that would make it nearly impossible for Candace to access anything without going through multiple layers of approval. By noon, my phone was ringing. Candace's number flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. She called 3 more times, each message progressively angrier. Finally, she sent a text. We need to talk about the business accounts. Call me. I texted back. Talk to my lawyer. Her response came immediately. You're making a huge mistake. I stared at those words, feeling nothing but cold determination. She was right about one thing. Someone was making a huge mistake. But it wasn't me. Tyler showed up at my office that afternoon with more information. Found something interesting, he said, spreading photos across my desk. Cameron Blake at the Riverside Hotel with Candace. Multiple dates over the past 2 months. How'd you get these? Hotel security footage. Had a friend pull it. He pointed to one image. This is from 2 days before your accident. They're looking at documents. Can't see what they are, but Candace looks pretty intent. I study the photos, bile rising in my throat. My wife and her boyfriend planning my destruction in a hotel room while I work my tail off to provide for our family. There's more, Tyler said grimly. Cameron's got a history. 3 previous clients, all men who ended up losing their businesses in divorces. 2 of them filed police reports claiming their accidents weren't accidents. Nothing was ever proven, but the pattern's there. He's done this before. The realization settled over me like a weight. Multiple times. And he's never been caught. I leaned back in my chair, mind racing. Cameron Blake thought he was untouchable. Thought he could destroy another man's life and walk away clean. But he'd made one critical error. He'd underestimated me. Give me everything you can on his previous cases, I said. Names, dates, court records. If there's a pattern, we're going to expose it. And then we're going to make sure he never does this to anyone else. Candace filed for emergency custody 3 days after I kicked her out. The petition claimed I was mentally unstable, that my injuries had affected my judgment, that I was putting the children at risk. It was a calculated move, designed to hurt me where I was most vulnerable. Tyler drove me to the emergency hearing. My lawyer, Patricia Bowman, met us outside the courthouse. She was in her 50s, sharp as a tack, with a reputation for eating opposing counsel alive. They're going to claim you're unfit, Patricia said as we walked in. Post-traumatic stress from the accident, paranoid delusions about your wife. Standard playbook for this kind of thing. Can they win? Not if I have anything to say about it. She smiled grimly. I've got the hotel photos, Cameron's background, and statements from both kids about their mother's behavior. Judge Hamilton doesn't suffer fools, and Candace's lawyer is about to look like the biggest fool in Arizona. The hearing was brutal. Candace's attorney, a slick younger guy named Preston, painted me as an unstable man who'd thrown his wife out in a fit of rage. He emphasized my head injury, suggested I needed psychiatric evaluation before being around the children unsupervised. Then Patricia stood up. Your Honor, may I present Exhibit A? She projected the hotel security photos onto the courtroom screen. Mrs. Reynolds with Cameron Blake, a consultant who specializes in destroying marriages for profit. Multiple meetings over 2 months. Candace's face went pale. Preston objected, but Patricia steamrolled over him. Exhibit B. Mr. Blake's criminal history. For lawsuits, all settled out of court. 3 previous clients whose husbands suffered convenient accidents during divorce proceedings. She turned to Candace. Mrs. Reynolds, when exactly did you hire Mr. Blake? I don't have to answer that, Candace stammered. Actually, you do, Judge Hamilton said, his expression stern. This is a custody hearing. The children's welfare is at stake. Answer the question. Candace looked at Preston, who gave a tiny shake of his head. 5 months ago, she finally admitted. 5 months, Patricia repeated. And Mr. Reynolds' accident occurred 3 weeks ago. Interesting timing. The hearing ended with Judge Hamilton denying Candace's petition. Temporary custody remained with me, pending a full investigation. As we left the courthouse, Candace grabbed my arm. This isn't over, Dan, she hissed. You're going to lose everything. I pulled free. The only thing I've lost is my illusions about who you really are. That night, Mateo asked to talk. We sat on the back patio, the desert air cooling as the sun set. I heard what happened in court today, he said quietly. Mom really hired that guy to go after you. Yeah, she did. I don't want to see her anymore. His voice was hard, older than his 17 years. What she did to you, to our family, I can't forgive that. I put my hand on his shoulder. You don't have to decide that right now. She's still your mother, despite everything. She stopped being my mother when she decided to destroy my father. He looked at me, eyes blazing with teenage conviction. I'm on your side, Dad. Whatever happens, I'm with you. The break came from an unlikely source. A woman named Jennifer Hayes called my office a week after the hearing. Sarah transferred her to me, noting that she'd seemed desperate to speak with me personally. Mr. Reynolds, you don't know me, Jennifer said, her voice shaking slightly. But I know Cameron Blake. He did to my ex-husband what he's trying to do to you. I sat up straighter. I'm listening. 5 years ago, Cameron helped me divorce my husband. Told me he could make sure I got everything. The business, the house, the retirement accounts. She paused. My husband ended up in a motorcycle accident 2 weeks before the final hearing. He survived, but barely. Cameron was the first person at the scene. My blood ran cold. Did you know Cameron caused the accident? I suspected, but I was too wrapped up in my anger to question it. By the time I realized what kind of man he was, the divorce was final. My ex-husband lost everything, including his relationship with our daughter. Her voice broke. I've regretted it every day since. Why are you telling me this? Because I saw the news about your custody hearing. I recognize the pattern, and I can't stay silent anymore. She took a breath. I have recordings, Mr. Reynolds. Conversations with Cameron where he talked about his methods. I kept them as insurance, in case he ever turned on me. I want to give them to you. We met at a coffee shop the next morning. Jennifer was petite, mid-40s, with the haunted look of someone carrying heavy guilt. She handed me a thumb drive. Everything's on here. Him discussing how to stage accidents, how to manipulate court proceedings, how to hide assets. It's all there. Tears filled her eyes. I can't undo what I did to my ex-husband. But maybe I can help you. I squeeze her hand. Thank you. This takes courage. It's not courage. It's penance. She stood to leave, then turned back. Mr. Reynolds, don't let them break you. Men like Cameron, they count on their victims giving up. Don't give up. Tyler and I reviewed the recordings that afternoon. Cameron's voice, cold and calculating, laid out his entire operation. How he selected vulnerable women in failing marriages. How he convinced them their husbands were the enemy. How he orchestrated accidents when direct confrontation seemed likely. This is gold, Tyler said. With this and the hotel photos, we can destroy him. We need to be careful, I replied. If Cameron realizes we have this, he'll disappear. Then we move fast. Get this to your lawyer, to the police, to anyone who'll listen. That evening, I made copies of everything. Sent one to Patricia, one to a detective friend, one to a local investigative journalist. By morning, Cameron Blake's world would start crumbling. But first, I had one more call to make. Candace, I said when she answered. We need to talk. Face to face. She was silent for a moment. Why? Because I'm giving you one chance to do the right thing. One chance to walk away from Cameron before everything collapses. I kept my voice level. After tonight, that option disappears. I'm not afraid of you, Dan. You should be afraid of the truth. It has a way of destroying everything in its path. We agreed to meet at a neutral location, a park near our old neighborhood. I brought Tyler as backup, and Candace came alone. She looked different than she had just weeks ago. Thinner, with dark circles under her eyes, and none of her usual polish. What do you want? She asked, arms crossed defensively. I handed her a tablet with the recordings queued up. Listen to this. All of it. Then tell me if you still want to stand by Cameron Blake. Candace listened to the recordings in silence, her face growing paler with each minute. When Cameron's voice described staging accidents, manipulating court proceedings, and destroying families for profit, she closed her eyes. He told me it was all legitimate. She finally said, her voice hollow, that we were just protecting my interests in case of divorce. Did you really believe that? I asked. Or did you just not want to know the truth? She looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something I hadn't seen in months. Genuine emotion. Regret, maybe, or just fear of what was coming. What happens now? She asked quietly. Now you have a choice. I took the tablet back. You can keep standing by Cameron, keep lying, and watch everything collapse around you. Or you can tell the truth. Cooperate with the investigation. Testify about what he told you, what he planned. He'll destroy me if I turn on him. He's already destroyed you, Candace. You just haven't realized it yet. I stood up. The police already have these recordings. They're coming for Cameron, probably within 48 hours. The question is whether you're going down with him, or whether you're going to save yourself and think about our children for once. Tyler had been standing at a distance, giving us privacy. Now he approached, handing Candace a business card. That's Detective Morrison. He's handling the investigation into your husband's accident. Call him before Cameron lawyers up and pins everything on you. Candace stared at the card, her hands trembling. I never wanted anyone to get hurt. I just wanted out. Then you should have asked for a divorce, I said. Instead, you hired a criminal and nearly got me killed. She started crying then, real tears that smeared her makeup. I'm sorry, Dan. God, I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this. But the truth might. I turned to leave, then stopped. The kids deserve better than what you've become. If you have any love left for them, do the right thing. 2 days later, Cameron Blake was arrested at his office. The charges included conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and racketeering. Jennifer's recordings, combined with Candace's testimony, built an airtight case. Candace had called Detective Morrison the night of our meeting, spent 6 hours giving a statement, and agreed to cooperate fully. The betrayal cut deep, Cameron's lawyer argued, but the evidence was overwhelming. 3 previous cases with similar patterns. Financial records showing payments to associates who'd staged the accidents. And Candace's testimony about what Cameron had told her about removing obstacles. Mateo watched the news coverage with grim satisfaction. Good. I hope he rots in prison. Amelia was quieter, processing everything in her own way. She'd asked to see Candace once, a supervised visit where her mother had apologized and tried to explain. Amelia had listened, then said simply, "You hurt Dad. You hurt all of us. I don't know if I can forgive that." 18 months later, I stood in the empty warehouse that would become Reynolds Medical Solutions' new distribution center. The company had grown 30% since the divorce, landing contracts with 2 major hospital networks. Turns out, almost dying and then publicly fighting off a conspiracy makes for good press. The divorce had been finalized 8 months ago. Candace received a small settlement and supervised visitation with the kids. Cameron Blake was serving 27 years in a federal prison, and 3 of his previous victims had filed civil suits. Jennifer Hayes had become an unlikely friend, helping other survivors of similar schemes find their voices. Mateo had just finished his first semester at Arizona State, studying business. He called every Sunday, and we'd started rebuilding the relationship that had been strained by years of my workaholism. Amelia was thriving in high school, playing soccer and acting in the drama club. She still had therapy once a week, working through the trauma of watching her family implode. Tyler had moved back to Phoenix, becoming Reynolds Medical's chief operating officer. He stood beside me now, reviewing the warehouse plans. "You did good, Dan," he said. "Most guys wouldn't have survived what you went through. Didn't have a choice. Had 2 kids counting on me. That's what made the difference. You fought for something bigger than yourself." My phone buzzed. A text from Amelia. "Dad, can we do movie night tonight? Mateo's coming home for the weekend." I smiled, typing back, "Absolutely. Your pick." Tyler noticed my expression. "The kids." "Yeah, family movie night." I pocketed the phone. You know, for a while there, I thought Cameron and Candace had destroyed everything. But they didn't. They just burned away the parts that weren't real. Heavy philosophy for a Tuesday. I'm a changed man. I grinned. "Come on, let's finish this walkthrough. I've got a date with my kids, and whatever terrible movie Amelia picks." As we walked through the warehouse, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. The accident, the betrayal, the fight for my family and my company. It had nearly broken me. But nearly isn't the same as completely. I'd learned that strength isn't about never falling down. It's about getting back up, even when every bone in your body screams to stay down. It's about protecting what matters, fighting for truth, and refusing to let someone else's darkness extinguish your light. That night, with Mateo and Amelia on either side of me on the couch, arguing good-naturedly about whether we were watching a comedy or action movie, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the absence of problems, but the presence of purpose. Cameron and Candace had tried to take everything. Instead, they'd given me something unexpected, clarity, about who I was, what I valued, and what kind of man I wanted to be. I chose to be the kind who stands up, who fights back, who protects his children and builds something stronger from the ruins. And in the end, that made all the difference.